Hey, Coach, so glad you found us on YouTube. Subscribe and like. See all my son's shoes there. That's the first thing. Second thing is go over and check out teachhoops.com for coaches who want to get better. Let me help you put banners on your walls in your basement, win state championships in less time for less than $1 a day. 14-day free trial. You will get my personal email address. You'll get one-on-one calls, office hours. Everything you would want is there and available. So go over and check it out, and let's head off to the podcast.
Good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are, coaches. Welcome to another episode of Coaching the Youth Hoops. I am your host, Coach Bill Flitter. We have I always say special guest. I would say special guest and friend. I got to know you over the last 6 months, I want to say.
Yeah, I think it's about 6 months.
About 6 months, yeah. Starre Tearney, Starre Tearney. My goodness. Tyranny. Let me try that again. Starre Tearney, as I say that. We have Starre Tearney on the podcast today. I asked Starre to come on because we got to talking about, this summer I'm big into the mental skills training, breathing. We had Graham on from the Sacramento Kings a few episodes ago. I think it's one aspect, the mental side is missing from youth sports. We put a lot of pressure on our kids. And Starre and I got to talking, and I was looking at her bio. She has a past in doing yoga, and we got on this conversation about breathwork. So we talked about that. She walked me through some exercises. I added to what Graham already does on his stuff. Added Starre's breathing exercises into it. And I thought, you know what? This could go someplace. And I wanted to get you on the phone. So welcome to the podcast. I think you're the first non-coach on the podcast. So
thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.
And I would imagine that you have such a caring group of coaches that are cultivating their craft. I mean, anybody that's going to spend their extra time to listen to a podcast to get better at their craft, I have a lot of respect for. And yes, I will tell you, I've used my breathing skills thinking about coming on to this podcast because I was that little shy, nerdy, artsy girl that was always having the clammy palms and the flushed cheeks when I was picked last. In gym class. So then when my life got this turn, and now here I am on a sports podcast, who would have thought that would have happened?
Right. Send that back to your classmates, right? One of the the premier youth sports podcast, by the way. So you can tell them.
Exactly. The premier, so it's not just like any old run of the mill. I'm on the premier. Right. Yeah. So anyway, life surprised you. That's the theme right there.
Right? Exactly. And that's a beautiful thing, right?
And so
Well, tell us about your background. I'd love to hear how, what got you to this point, what you're doing now, and how, what you do can help coaches and the athletes that they serve.
So what I do now is I primarily work with, I only work with adults currently, and I do mentorship. That's it's kind of like coaching. Honestly, it's like life and biz coaching. And I use a multidimensional approach that combines, mindset, somatic practices, also as far as like the tactical and practical things that go into business and life, and you get a lot of shifts and whatnot. And my path is one of those kind of funny, sort of wiggly things that in retrospective and along the way didn't make much sense to how I got here. Because it's just been a lot of different experiences. I had schooling in psychology for a while, and then did interior design, and I mean, I'll save you like my whole my whole bio. But I did after I had my kiddo, like in tears. I was super intense. It was a very high pressure job, and I wanted to have something that afforded me the ability to be really present and to take care of my stress. And so that's when I went sort of down the yoga path, and I taught adult yoga, and then I also taught kids yoga for several years. And it was in some of the big preschools here in the Bay Area. I taught at Cliff and Pixar. And so that's been really fun. And it's given me a great appreciation for people that work with children, because it is there's just the factor of kids being kids, and you have to really respond to that and everything. And there's nothing like a group of kids that can spin out a nervous system.
For sure.
And so yeah, and then anyway, so now I'm doing where I work with adults, and I do some of my yoga training, I do the psychology training, and energy training that I've had, and I kind of combine it into what I do now currently. And then I did want to share, like, since I didn't grow up with sports, I had like I grew up with a single mom. We just didn't have like sports in our life growing up. It was kind of, I actually am kind of a late bloomer with my love of basketball. We lived in Indiana when before my daughter was born, and then when she was born, and I got baptized into the Church of Basketball in a proper way by the Indiana Hoosiers.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. How could you leave that state without being or without falling in love with basketball?
I mean, it was I was so pregnant walking up bleachers, when they have their, like, I can't remember what it's, Hoosier hysteria. The Hoosier hysteria, it happened right before my kiddo was born, and I'm like drugging up the bleachers to watch it. She was a tiny little tot, like in the carrier going to games and stuff like that.
Well, that's where she caught her bug then.
That's where she caught her bug. So early on. And what I just wanted to, the reason I'm kind of sharing this sort of widely pasted random story is because I feel like my background, and then coming in later and having a child who is a youth athlete, has afforded me a lens overall of a lot of different factors that go into basketball and the culture of basketball, and what these athletes experience, what parents experience, and also the coaches. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. And I think sometimes if you sort of grew up in that, it's helpful to have like kind of an outside lens. And
well, I want to stop you right there.
Yeah, go ahead. Okay, thank you.
Because I think it's important. We talk about the parents and the interaction between parents and coaches, and parents and their athlete, during the game, before the game, during the game, and after the game. And I will say that, one, you're one of the good ones. You're very supportive of what we do and what we're trying to do, and you understand, like you said, because you have a different perspective. But I do, joking, but do see you breathe on the sidelines, just taking deep breaths as I'm coaching. I'm kidding. You're awesome. So I appreciate all your energy that you do bring to the team, and that's why also I wanted to bring you on. You have this neat perspective because I do coach your daughter, and you have the background that you have, and I'm glad you went through all of that, because our backgrounds shape who we are right today. And as we go through life and get to the point, I'm a little bit older than you, but you just kind of realize, like, why am I here? What am I doing? Right. And you make those decisions. Well, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Right.
That's right.
And it's when you get to that point, it's such a magical thing. So, and I think just in conversations with you, that's where you're at. So all of these little things that you did to get you to this point, and that's what I'm really excited about to hear, and how we can help more coaches and kids with that experience.
For sure. And I mean, same on everything. I love the mission that you have. I love the lens that you take with basketball. You know, one of the things, kind of feeling like an outsider with sports and kind of feeling like picked last or whatever, I sort of had like this negative perspective of sports for a while, like, you know, I had whatever. And then it was through, my husband played baseball, you know, through high school and college. And I saw the positives and how fine-tuned his mind was because of that athletic training and because of that sports training. And I think sometimes when folks get so tied into this game, this win, this one performance, they miss the overarching skill set that really creates high performers later in life, because that ability to navigate high stress situations and navigate you know, not getting so wrapped up in like beating yourself up or like turning about why didn't I do this, why didn't I do that, but like learning from it, what can I do better, moving forward. I mean, that's the success maker right there. It's
and you know, we always talk about rewarding the effort, not the outcome, right?
exactly.
So you know, the not focusing on the wins, or the first question you ask your athlete is, well, how many points did you score, right? You know, it should be you know, more about the effort that they put out and that they were just there and just doing it, right? Especially at the, you know, K-8 level. You get to high school, you know, maybe you get a little bit more competitive, especially if you have this vision that you want to go on and play post high school, right? No, you're right on.
And so that kind of what made me really see the value of sports. I've seen with my daughter, you know, when she, like, especially with you, I would say that she's had a few different coaching experiences, but the way that you holistically coach the kids has been like, it's been a masterpiece to watch. I won't brag on you too much, but it's been a real joy.
Please.
It's been a joy to watch, because
thank you.
You know, I've seen you. We have a bit of a drive, so I'm not all of the practices, which normally I wouldn't be, but it's like I've seen you kind of like layer and layer and layer, and you just like, it's just subtle layering, and then next thing you know, you're like, holy moly, look at what's happened here, you know. It's been really fun to watch. And what I will say is, then going to some of these games, I'm like, wow, sometimes it's very intense, not only for the players, but like, you know, you got refs that seem like they're gunning for you, not you, but like sometimes, like as a general whole, like sometimes the refs know that, like, it's like sometimes they seem fair, sometimes it's like, where are you coming from with these calls right now? And then I've seen parents, not in our games, but at other ones when I was watching, where they're like really invested and almost on the court. And I would imagine as a child that's super intense if your parent is right here, like getting so swept up, you know, that's a lot of pressure for a little one, especially like these little guys that are like 8 and 9. It's like, and then as a coach, you know, you can only do so much. You can do all the work ahead of time, you can have all the plays, you can say all the things, and then it can just turn into
did we lose you?
calls. And I would imagine as a coach, that can get very intense feeling. And so that's why having some of these breathwork practices to sort of lean on either before, during, and after the game really helps you stay grounded, embodied, calm. Because the truth of the matter is, like kiddos respond best to regulated adults. So, and it's like not, I mean, every grown up gets unregulated and kind of like gets in their feelings and like gets really spun out. That's because we're human beings.
Yeah.
But the more that we can stay grounded, you know, in that really solid core, kids respond better to that, you know?
Well, it's funny. I mean, this is a great segue into a few stories, which you're absolutely right. You know, one of the things that I've been working on is, you know, quote unquote, my sideline behavior. I never was a yeller too much. And I'm actually, I always say I talk loud and I bark instructions. But I've toned that down a lot, because even though I feel like I'm helping, I'm probably not. Right? We've had practice, we prepared, we can do as much as we can. You know, and like you said, if we're unregulated, so will the kids. Even if my intention is good, but my voice sounds of someone like I'm mad, but I'm hardly ever. I would say one time this year where I was just like, what are you doing? Right. But you know, that you're absolutely right. The rest feed off of that. Then if you're in on them, right, the kids will feed off of that. And, you know, and I think I've gotten a lot of the kids to the point where they know that. And we talk about the, you know, kind of the palms down approach, just like, okay, like, you know, oh, that wasn't my fault, right? We go palms up, versus the palms down approach, which is, okay, yep, I got the call. I can't change the call, right? So just relax. Or I missed a shot. You know, I could get all angry. I can't believe I missed another shot, right? It's like, okay, it's just a shot. I just missed it. You know, Steph Curry misses a lot of shots, right? And it was funny in the game, our last game, we had that situation where, you know, it was calm. Fourth quarter, the game was, you know, close, and these calls kept on coming up. It was just like, what? Like, what, you know, how did you make that decision? Where was that from? And I questioned the referee, one of our players. You know, she looks at me and she goes, "Coach," and she goes, "Palms down."
Oh.
And I'm like, okay, awesome, good. Right. Then she was right. She goes, we don't, and then she came off the bench. She goes, "Coach, we don't need any calls going against us or them looking for." I'm like, oh my goodness, who are you? I loved it, you know? So you're right? You know, if we can get our players, and we have that relationship with our players where we're not just the authority figures either, where this is a team effort, right? Let's work together. We're all learning. Right? You know, we think, oh, you know, 20 years experience in coaching, but yet, you know, I don't know about the team that I have now, the individual, you know, pieces. You know, I'm learning that every single time, right? With the new player, new team that comes in. So, you know, I need to learn the kids and their reactions and how much I can, you know, push them in a good, positive way that they reach. And they stretch themselves, and they just coast, right? But going back to your original statement about, you know, the kids on quote unquote on stage, and we're watching them and yelling and screaming and cheering, whatever it is. You know, I had a conversation 2 weeks ago with the team, and we just sat down in our normal roundup before practice, and I asked them, I said, "You guys seemed a little reserved. Why were you reserved?" And they said they were nervous. And I said, oh, you know, because I do work on that a lot with them about making mistakes and such. And they said, oh, it's nothing to do with you, coach. It's, you know, somebody, you know, I don't want to let my team down. My family's there. I would just be embarrassed if I missed a shot, wide open layup, ball dribbled off my foot or whatever. And one person said, oh, my siblings are going to make fun of me if I, you know, miss a wide open layup. And I'm like, okay, all right, I hear you. And so we talked through that and what you can do. And, you know, I gave them a few techniques, some of the stuff we talked about, the breath work and such. Can you maybe dive into some things that coaches can do themselves. Coaches can help players from based off of your, how you work with adults on what they can do in those high pressure situations.
Yes. So what you just brought up is great. I mean, keeping sort of a beginner's mind, keeping sort of loose about things, not putting so much pressure on the kids and yourself, because really it's just a game.
Right.
It's just play. It's just a game. I think if we keep that kind of lightness to it, that helps. And then as far as breathing, the one thing that there's a lot of different breath work kind of things that you can do, but the reason I showed you the one I did, and I'll share it with your audience here, is because it really allows the mind to focus on conscious breathing and get a very full breath. And so what I showed you was the 3-part breathing, and that's where when you inhale, you start by sort of softening your lower belly and sending your breath all the way there. And then the next part of the inhale, you expand your ribs. And then the final part of the inhale is the chest. So it's sort of like this internal balloon that you're kind of blowing up as you're inhaling. Oftentimes when you're in an athletic state, you're in aerobics, you're getting a full breath. But a lot of times when the stress is happening, that's when we go into that shallow breathing. We might hold our breath. That's when our bodies sort of like get into that protective mechanisms. And so practicing this conscious breathing outside of an athletic performance allows you to tap into that very quickly when you need it. And so you do that. And then when you exhale, you drop the chest, compress the ribs, and then the belly. And then you kind of can like squeeze out the last little bit of the balloon at the end. So let me know if that makes sense, because usually I do more of a, like I walk people through. So like you just inhale, you expand your belly, gum up, and as you continue to inhale, your ribs sort of balloon out. And then you finally end, and then your chest is, the breath is all the way up to the top of your chest. And then as you exhale, you drop your chest, your ribs, your belly, and then you can just squeeze out a little bit more at the end. And so when you are off the court and off the game, and you're just sort of practicing this, it's sort of it's kind of a weird thing. You're like, what? 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. You can count it if you want to sort of do whatever. And it feels kind of clunky and sort of weird, because you're not used to thinking about breathing. It feels kind of awkward to like, what am I focusing on and where? But the whole point is like getting the biggest breath, the most expansive breath with the most oxygen, and then letting it all out. And then as you get practice with that, it sort of smooths out, and it just becomes this really natural, very deep, calming breath that you can tune into at any point. And let me know if that made sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It does. And it's becoming more of a quote unquote thing, is to take time to breathe and meditate, and especially in athletics. And during the NCAA tournament, you could see the Marquette, I think, was playing UConn, and during their timeout in a high pressure situation, instead of the coaching barking orders, the mental skills trainer came over and they did breath work.
I love that.
Yeah, and that calms their nerves down. And there's a couple of instances just the other day, thank goodness, we're starting to do some mental training as well, close your eyes, visualizing things. And we were bowling at our end of the season party, and the girls, I'm a decent bowler. I'm not great, but decent. And I kept on missing my spares. I get 8 pins down, 7 pins down, 9 pins down. I just couldn't get the strikes going. And then I missed the spares. One of them, they said, "Coach, breathe, and visualize the pins going down. So the girl next to me, I both said, okay, let's do it. Let's try it. Right. So we visualize like, okay, breathe in, you're doing what you just did. And then, of course, guess what happened? We visualized the pins going down. We both hit our spares. And I'm like,
I
see,
love
it
that.
works. It works.
Yeah.
The other one I used the other day too, I was training this shooter that I had, a really good shooter, and she missed 3 in a row. And I could just see going back to coach's new method isn't working. Let me go back to my old style. And I could just see her kind of transition. And I did a timeout. I mean, it's just her and I in the gym. And I said, okay, count backwards for me. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. She hit the next 10 in a row. So what that does, it just resets you, takes your mind off of the 3 that I just missed and refocus. So we have to find these little moments in the game to reset ourselves, and we start feeling nervous, and we get the jitters, or whatever it is. So coaches, you have to help the players and give them these tools, because it really truly is a strategic advantage that we don't talk about, the mental side
Exactly.
of training. So I'd love to hear how you do some of the you work with high level executives too. So what do they have in common with athletes, and then the training that you do with them?
Can I add one more thing to the breath
Please.
work?
Oh gosh, yeah, absolutely.
One thing I wanted to bring up too is sometimes with athletic training and with sports, that breath work is sort of different. Is a lot of times you're kind of coming top down to the body. So you're like molding the body, making, you're like, it's like, it's almost like not the internal out. I mean, there is the what do you call it? The muscle memory and things like that, but it's like you're using your body as a tool. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, it's me again, real quick. Just interrupting 30 seconds for the podcast, but go over and check out coachingyouthhoops.com, the one-stop shop for a youth basketball coach. Everything you need. It's what Coach Bill and I would have wanted as youth coaches when we were coaching our kids. Go over and check it out. I'm going to tell you, give you a little secret. Prices are going to be going up this fall. So go over and check it out. Let's head off to the podcast.
Yeah.
And what the breath work does is it gets that inner gaze. The same thing as what you're doing with the mental work is that instead of coming from like top down, you're coming in out. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And the inside, or from you said in and out. Explain that one more time, how that is the connection, right? And why that is important. That makes sense?
Yes. So the reason why it's helpful, like you were saying, to have these mental things or to have this inner gaze is sometimes what will happen is you can try all of these approaches of like the hands down or the counting, and then something will just click that they're not quite aware of, and it can spin a person out of their game focus. Right. And so when you have this from the inside out, which is the breath work, which you're like kind of quieting all the noise, you're tuning inside and breathing, then that's like coming. It's it's like coming inside out. I don't know how to explain it, rather than like top down or
down.
Yeah. Does that
totally
make sense?
Yeah, and I think what you said, and I want to highlight it, is individuals have to find the thing that works for them.
Yes.
Right? And I know some coaches that are teaching this at a very young age already. I had a girl in camp the other day. She's an elite swimmer. She's been doing this stuff since 5th grade, right? Or no, 5th grade? Yeah, it must have been 5th grade, not 5. 5th grade. So she's been doing it a lot, for a while, learning how to calm herself when she's on the stand, jumping in and everything. So I think it's and the pressure that we're putting on our kids to perform, they need other tools to help them through that. They get pressure in school, and hopefully what we teach on the court can help them also in the classroom. So.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, anytime you're doing this kind of breathwork practices and stuff like that, and the mental stuff, everything, even being able to kind of stay kind of calm under pressure, like what a game requires, that helps with like text anxiety and things like that, where they can translate the skills over to that kind of thing. And then as far as the people I work with a lot of high performers, business owners, high achievers, and the work I do is a lot of different things, but it's kind of the same. It really honestly sort of translates. It's just patterns that are creating friction or like stopping success. We see what it is, and then we find out the root and kind of get rid of it. And I use a lot of different things. I get them aware with the body, doing breath work. I do a lot of mental skills training too. I don't call it that, but it is kind of mental skills training. And then I also help with business strategies and structures and communication and relationship is kind of widely varied. It's hard to I do a lot. I would say the biggest thing is I'm able to quickly see the patterns and stories that are blocking my clients from reaching their goals. I
think that's a holistic approach, right? It's not because, like you said earlier, I don't know if we said it earlier here, if we were off air, but taking a look at, because I could work with a business strategist right now, and they can give me a great plan. It's up to me to go implement that plan. But if I don't have everything else right, or I have I don't know if I can do that. That's way above my reach, if you will, right?
Yeah.
You need to unlock that. And that's the same thing for our athletes. We can show them the best player how to do something, but if they don't feel they don't have the confidence to do it, they're not going to be able to perform. And I think we need to check in with them and ask those questions like I did and sat, because as much as I talk about the mistakes are okay and that's how we learn, blah 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 blah, they still felt nervous in the game, and they were reassured me it wasn't me, because I was really worried about that, of course. And they said, no, it's the outside influences, right? They're in a fishbowl, everybody's looking at them while they're performing. So they have to learn how. We take that for granted that doesn't add pressure, right?
I mean, as an adult, it adds pressure.
Oh my gosh, could you imagine? You're you have 5 people standing around you right now, right, yelling at you and saying, "Oh, you should have said that." Oh my gosh, right?
No,
it's insane.
Even if the parents are trying to keep their faces calm, there's the groans and the tears and the.
You know what? I catch myself on missed layups, because I'm okay, they just missed a layup, right? But my outside, I'm oh my goodness, they just missed another wide layup.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Right? I'm okay, it's just a layup. I got to practice what I preach, right? So.
Well, I think the thing that's really important to note is that perfectionism can come in many different forms, and to be easy on ourselves as coaches, to be easy on the kids, while also holding a standard and working through the multitude of challenges that come up in a game and off a game. And I think, like you said, that's one of the things I really enjoy about the way that you approach coaching in general is you look at the whole child. You're not just saying why, and that's the same tie for how I work with people. I look at the whole person, or all of it, because you cannot separate really. So it's
right.
You can't separate and go, well, it's just this one thing over there. Oh, I'm missing. I choke up every time I'm doing a layup, and it's because I'm hearing my sister in the back of my head making fun of me and calling me names. It's
right. Yeah.
It's if you don't address the sister calling you names, it doesn't matter how many times you get the form right in practice,
Right.
So it's giving weight to that. And then I would also say, as coaches, owning our own stuff is kind of coming up. Why,
Yeah.
with when we're feeling, I always say, like, if you're starting to feel really elevated or kind of like spun out, and it feels bigger than what's happening in the moment, like maybe off in your own time, go, that's kind of interesting. I wonder what's happening there, and
Mm-hmm.
then that kind of helps you. Like, you can put the tools in, but there might be something else. Like, who knows? I mean, who knows?
Yeah.
Everybody has their stuff of like experiences that come into play. Um, but then you can kind of go, oh, yeah, this one thing kind of spins me out because when I was a player, I had X experience, and now I kind of have that in the back of my mind when I'm coaching, right?
Yeah,
You see what I'm
right.
saying?
Yeah, that
Yeah.
totally makes sense. Yeah, and I think we get inside our heads too, a bit, player or coach, when we all do. And how do you deal with that self-talk? Because I've noticed it seems to elevate more as kids get older, right? So maybe it's a little bit less in fifth grade, and and by the time they get to high school, the self-talk, that inner voice is really speaking loudly to them.
Is this, do you see this with girls and boys? Or are you seeing it more with the girl coaching that you're doing?
Really, yeah, more with the girls.
So it's a very natural thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there can be an uptick of anxiety at certain developmental phases that a girl goes through. And they just naturally can be more anxious. Whether there is a biological, and then there's
Right.
also nurture nature is what I'm trying to say. So they are more connected, more
Mm.
group.
Yeah. Yeah.
They are more aware a lot of times of their community and things like that. And so being able to kind of know, I call it, what do I call it? The fear monster. That's what I
Yeah.
call it.
Right. Yeah.
I call it the fear monster with my kiddo, because it's like it comes in, or like the inner a-hole. It comes in, it's this
Yeah.
really mean, it's a mean voice, and it just says all the meanest stuff to you in the world. And sometimes it'll like predict the future, and it'll like spin out about all the stuff that's going to happen. And sometimes it like is like sees everybody and they're saying stuff about you when it's like all made up. You don't know any of this stuff, right?
Right. Yeah.
It's basically a safety mechanism that kind of comes in, that kind of gets blown up and turns into this inner a-hole or fear monster, whatever you want to call it.
I like the inner
And
a-hole.
yeah.
I
And
can't use
so,
that though with the kids. So.
no, you can't use that. Call it whatever you want to make up
Yeah.
your age
I'll have to make.
appropriate.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's so true
Uh,
that voice just gets loud. It can get loud, and I've noticed it. And I noticed it a lot more recently after COVID. And I
yes.
think that was definitely, we had a lot of time on our own, right? So what do you, no, let me step back.
So,
Kind of where this whole thought process is
yeah.
like, we think we're just going to roll out a ball, right? As a coach, we're going to roll a ball. Here's our, game plan for today, our practice plan, and we're going to do, 5 minutes, this, that, and the other thing. And then I see waves of it. I see individuals like are struggling with it, maybe wouldn't normally struggle. Sometimes I see the whole group just like, where is the energy today, as a group? And, we can't, I don't know, the approach that I always take is to say, okay, time out, what's going on? Like, either as a group, or if I see an individual kind of struggling, I'll ask various questions of what's going on. It's not always just, well, hey, what's going on? I don't want to assume that there's always a problem, or, I start asking them more specifics about their days that then I can piece. And usually it's, I was up to 3 o'clock last night on my phone or something like that, or with talking on the phone or whatever it is. And I'm like, there it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, going back to like that inner voice and how we talk to ourselves, where I was kind of driving all of this is there's a lot that goes on a kid's mind too, that we just think we're going to go there and play, right? Or we think they're just going to come into play and we're going to teach them how to play. We got to take those other factors in too. Home life, what just happened. They could have gotten an argument with their mom or dad, for example, just dropping them off, a sibling, whatever. Somebody could have called them a name right before practice, right? Now we're supposed to be a safe place, but basketball is supposed to be, or sports is supposed to be a life lesson as well. So I'm just curious. I know that was a lot, but again, it goes back to this holistic view of what's happening on the court with your clients as well when you speak to them.
So as far as
anything else,
the tool with like the inner a-hole,
yeah.
What I generally like to do is I think a lot of times just even giving a name to it and awareness, where it's like, hey, if you got a little meanie in your head, that's not you. That's like, it's like this part of you that's trying to keep you safe, but it's not actually you. And you can like talk against it. And sometimes you go, shut up.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and like the more you kind of get aware of what it sounds like, you know, how it behaved, you can catch it early. And then as far as like translating that to kids, I can't tell you enough about when kids just feel like a whole human and they're seen as a whole human, not just like somebody who's trying to perform in this one way or whatever. I mean, that is incredibly settling for anybody really, to be seen of like, hey, you got more than just this one thing going on right now. Let's like give a beat to that. And so I think it is to get to know the kids, to kind of like you said, like doing this extra stuff where you're kind of getting a greater awareness that it's not just what's happening right this minute. They might not have eaten well, they might have had too much sugar and caffeine, they might have had something with their parents, they might have had like a crush that like rejected them. Who knows? I mean, good gosh, if anybody can remember back to middle school, what an incredibly challenging time.
Yeah, no, and you're right on. And I like how you say, just, you got to give a beat to it as a coach. And it's like, all those things do exist. And we can't just expect they're going to come in with a clear mind, just ready to play. Some of these things are, real life stuff. Some of them are like you said, I just had too much sugar or whatever before I came in, or didn't have enough to eat. Some people listening to this, and maybe they haven't gotten this type of person hasn't gotten this far, is recognizing the importance of what we've just been talking about, and what we've been talking in previous podcasts as well, about the mental side. It's like, I'm an old school coach, right? My coach, you think my coach would ever talk about the mental side of the game? Flitter, you're weak, you're this, you're that, right? Get out there and play. Why, in your opinion, have things shifted where we are taking a time out to recognize these things and paying attention to it? It's because of the awareness is more, we understand it a lot more than we did. Does it make us quote unquote weak? And I thought as an athlete, I'm supposed to, just like get after it and, kill somebody on the playing field.
It's so funny that you brought up the old school coach, because I was just thinking that a minute ago. It was like old school parenting, old school coaching.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Where it's like, I'm in charge and you listen to me. Right. And it's like, there was a pattern and a programming that kind of ran for a while that was like, oh, if a authority figure who is in charge of children shows any sort of tenderness or like connection in that way, you're going to lose your ability to lead, right?
Right.
And it's
Oh, yeah,
like,
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah. And so I do think that you cannot minimize the effects that COVID and that has had collectively around the world on people as a whole. That really was a very traumatic experience for everybody. I mean, it was like a mass trauma that everybody
Right.
kind of went through. And so that's going to have some effects. And then I think too, one of the reasons a lot of this stuff is coming into play, I mean, you know, some of the natural things that kind of regulate the nervous system, like not being on tech, riding your bike in the woods, um, you know, as a kid, they
Right.
don't have that anymore.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
we're inundated with information, stimulation, 24/7 around the world constantly. And it is intense, and our bodies have not caught up. Our bodies and mind have not caught up to the level of information that is
Yeah.
input
Coming at us. Yeah.
constantly. And then when you combine that with a developing mind and body, it is a lot for a little one to put up with. It's a lot for them to kind of take in. And so you know, chicken and egg, it's like I think it's a necessity. It's like you just literally cannot live without taking in and realizing that you got to like tune into all of this stuff in order to like thrive. Really, it's required.
Yeah. No, and I'm glad you said it like that too, because I think, you know, that is a big problem what the kids are facing today versus what you and I did when we were growing up or had or didn't have, right? I feel it as an adult, like as a
Mhm.
business person, right? I get inundated with all kinds of, and the other thing is I'm so curious. I just I want to take everything in, and
Yeah.
that's a feeling, that's an overwhelming feeling because I
Mhm.
know I don't have time, right?
Yeah.
To take everything in. I can only read so fast, and I got, as I said, I was doing yard work before our phone call, and what did I have on? I was listening to a podcast, right? I don't remember it was. Well, I remember what it was. It was about it was an interview with the United CEO, right? And it was, it was a business podcast, and so I just don't have. I could have just sat in nature and did yard work, right? And been talking to my inner a-hole, so to speak, was maybe even yelling at me. But my mind just doesn't have time to rest. And that's
Yeah,
right. And that's overwhelming. And like you said,
it
you
is.
add, now you're a teenager, and all of this, you just endless scrolls of everything coming at you, right?
It's
And the
constant.
beautiful lives that everybody has except for you, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah, we have to, as coaches, we have to remember that
Yeah.
is different than when we were growing up.
It's
And that,
like a whole different it's like we're on a different planet. It's
mhm,
literally like we may as well be an alien life form compared to what we grew up with, you know,
a good
honestly, because
point. Yeah.
it's like I mean, I even think back to like my grandparents. I'm like, I think I was an outhouse and they had like like a dial-in light, you know, and now they're, I mean, just what went through their life and then what went through our life. And now where our kids are, and you know, if we have a hard time disconnecting as fully formed brains and adults with all of
Right.
our maturity awareness, and we have a hard time not comparing ourselves to everybody else and feeling crappy, you know, it's like, how do you expect a little kid or a middle schooler, even an older, almost teenager to not have that same experience, you know?
Yeah.
And that affects the game.
Absolutely. Right. Absolutely. It
Yeah.
does. Yeah, exactly. And I would also imagine, some of this fear is, oh, what happens if somebody just recorded my missed layup or my
Mm.
mistake I just made, right? And that gets
Oh,
posted to Instagram, right? Especially at the high school level, because those games are, everybody's got a camera or something, right? And you get your peers in the stands as well, right? That just adds to the pressure too. So I think, okay, so let's step back. Let's recap what we can help as a coach. What can we do with our players? Let's break it all down for the coaches. How can we help them deal with this new life we're playing in?
Yeah,
the life they're playing in.
I think the greatest thing as a coach that the greatest service that you can do is taking care of yourself, doing your own breathwork practices outside of practice and everything so that you can easily access that inner calm when you need to. Obviously your coaches that listen to this care because they're trying to improve their craft. So like that kind of thing. Understanding that you as a coach is a whole person and that your players are whole people too. And so just having a little bit more openness and awareness to that. And I think that simply is it right there. I mean, there's a lot that goes into what goes into that kind of thing, but basically, if you have that sort of empathetic lens and understand that it's not just right now, there's a whole apparatus of things that might have been happening before. And then also for yourself, kind of being tuned into that. And then I would say as parents, being aware of that as well, that like not only the kids, but the coaches and it's just a game. It's just a game. Like, let's just make it a little lighter, everybody. It's just a game. And really, if you really boil it down to what is the best benefit of sports, yeah, of course, however percentage of these kids that play youth sports are going to turn out to be a professional ball player and be like the next Steph Curry, the next Grace Bergen or whatever. It's like, yeah, sure. But the majority are going to have this experience, and it really is about teaching them fundamental skills that is going to set them up for success. Not only, being able to handle high pressure, high stress situations, but their mental game and being able to move forward. And that's what we need. We need like kiddos that have those skills. That's going to really help everything. So,
awesome. Starre, this has been a great conversation. I know we could probably go on and talk about this stuff for another hour. How can, if someone wants to learn more about what you do and how you approach things, where can they find you?
They can find me on Instagram at Starre Tearney, and I'm sure you'll put my spelling because it is a very strange spelling, or at StarreTearney.com. And my website is in flux right now, but it's being added to constantly. So those are the best places. Instagram's a little more up to date. The website's in flux, and that's where you can find me. So.
Awesome. And I will definitely put that in the show notes. Thank you so much for your time. This has been a great conversation. And I appreciate every moment you can spend helping us as coaches learn more about how we can be better and how we can help the kids improve. So thank you. And until next time.
Yeah, and thank you everybody for taking this, picked last in PE girl and taking your time to listen to me today. I really appreciate it. And like I said, I really appreciate the care and effort that you put into coaching kids. So thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you, Starre. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Hey, Coach. So glad you enjoyed the video. Subscribe and like before you leave, and also go over and check out teachhoops.com for coaches who want to get better. It's got everything and a roadmap for you to become a better basketball coach. So go over and check it out, and let's head back to the next video, wherever that would be.